of our Research in Schools webinar forum. Today we are delighted to have Dr. Florence Boulard from James Cook University here to talk to us about a different way to teach French in schools. And before we begin, we're just going to do a brief acknowledgement of country. So the Department of Education acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands across Queensland. We pay our respects to the elders, past, present and emerging, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and the hopes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples across the state. We recognise that a better understanding and respect for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures develops an enriched appreciation of Australia's cultural heritage and can lead to reconciliation. This is essential to the maturity of Australia as a nation and fundamental to the development of an Australian identity. Welcome, Florence. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for giving up some of your time to listen to the presentation. So I'm just going to share, and I'll make sure to include the sound as well. Here we go. Can I have some indication that you are able to see the slide, please, if you want to put something in the chat?
Yes, that's all great.
Thank you. So same, I would like to begin in the spirit of reconciliation. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which I join you today. So I'm currently in Townsville, so on the land of the Wulguru, Kaba, and Bindal people. And because today I will also be speaking about my island home, I would like to extend that acknowledgement as well to the First Nation people who come from across Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. So my name is Florence Boulard. I've been a teacher in Australia since 2008. I migrated to Australia from Kanaki, New Caledonia, and I went to UQ, where I studied the Bachelor of Arts and the Bachelor of Education. It was during my time as an international student that I would repeatedly engage in the following conversation. So I'm trying to go to my next slide. There we go. So while I was a student and then later on as I graduated and became a teacher, I often had conversations with people about my accent, which you can hear hasn't really disappeared despite having been in Australia for over 20 years now. So people will say to me, oh, you have an accent, where are you from? And so I would say, I'm from New Caledonia. And then they would say, oh, where is that? You sound French. And so we'll say it's an island between here and New Zealand. And people will say, oh, so they speak French there? And so I will say, yes, it's the official language. We speak French. And sometimes people will say, oh, wow, that's awesome. But at the same time, it's so strange. And so there were variations of this conversation. And every now and then, I would get some people saying to me that, oh, yes, they have heard about New Caledonia because they had been on a cruise. So obviously that was prior to COVID-19. But back then, I always used to say thank you to P&O for that, because there seems to be a gap in knowledge about people's understanding of the Pacific, and more so people being surprised that French was a language that was also spoken in this part of the world. So of course, that was until the event that happened in May this year. And I did a research paper a few weeks ago where I was looking at some data about the mention or the visibility of New Caledonia in Australia, in Australian media. And I have noticed that just in this year alone, there was over 60 stories done by the ABC about New Caledonia compared to less than 15 last year, which most of them were mainly around sharks, and less than 5 the year before that. So eventually I graduated as a French language teacher, and I moved from Brisbane to Townsville. And it's when I moved that I thought that having those conversations with strangers about where I was coming from, being a French language teacher myself, that I would have the opportunity to challenge the stereotypical imagery of the French language. However, despite my background growing up in the Pacific, and I guess cultural hegemony was stronger, and without noticing it, I guess this invisible force made me teach a curriculum which was Eurocentric. And so the beginning of my teaching career coincided with the Asian-centric discourse that positioned Asia as the most important regional neighbor to Australia. So as a beginning teacher, I guess I was quite aware of what was happening between language teachers in terms of the policies that were created, which created tension and animosity for language teachers and some sort of divide between Asian and European language teachers, with the latter at times feeling as they were publicly put in competition with Asian languages, which were clearly being marked as the privileged languages. And I guess it is this emphasis on knowing our neighbors, yet at the same time, nobody seemed to know much about the Pacific Islands, which created a disorientating dilemma to me as an educator. And the reason why I'm sharing this background story is so that you understand why I have taken the steps to do this research project. Although I have always agreed with the promotion of Asian languages and Asian culture, I mean, I am half Asian myself. My mom is Vietnamese and Chinese, and growing up, Vietnamese was spoken at home. And I was a very passionate Japanese language student as well at school up to grade 12. So, but what I wanted to do at the time was trying to make the Pacific Islands more visible, more accessible, and in particular in the school curriculum here in Australia. So that's why I did. Initially, I studied with a master degree, and I was just on my own at James Cook University. It wasn't involving really the French language teachers, but this was to come up with a definition of international mindedness. And eventually, as I progressed through my career, the international mindedness focus that I had transformed into a Pacific-mindedness focus. Focus which I hope to continue working on over the years. So why that focus on the Pacific? Obviously, there is a link to the personal journey that I have just shared with you, but I strongly believe that we share a past, a present, and a future with our Pacific Island neighbors. There are also an increasing number of Pacific Islanders coming into your schools, in particular through Queensland schools and through state schools in Queensland. So I think it's important for them to be able to see themselves being represented in the curriculum opportunities that we offer as educators. So I moved eventually away from the school, and I got a job in 2012 at James Cook University, where I've been now an academic for, I guess, 12 years. And I'm just going to show you this video now because I think it's going to then lead you onto what we have done and why I'm here today. So hopefully that will work. The video goes for 4 minutes, and yeah, if somebody want to send me a quick wave or something in the chat to confirm you can hear the sound, that'd be great. Thank you.
I'll let you know, Florence.
Thank you. I would like
that's all great.
see a transformation in the way both students and teachers perceive the French language classroom as a place where we could educate the next generation about the Pacific. Bonjour, my name is Florence Boulard and I've been working at James Cook University since 2012. We have transformed our program here, our French program at JCU, so that we could have a focus on the Pacific. So going from a Eurocentric focus to a Pacifica focus. Looking at the Francophone Islands, which would be then a window to help students discover the rest of the Pacific region. In comparison to the north, the population in the Pacific is of course a lot smaller, but it's not about numbers, it's about people. And so there are opportunities for university students in Australia to spend time in Asia or in the Pacific. So with the New Colombo Plan, which is an initiative with DFAT, we have received some scholarships to take our students to the Pacific, which we're very grateful for. We have been taking a group of at least 10 students every year since 2012. So we have over 50 students now who have been to Vanuatu or New Caledonia, and so this is thanks to the support of the Australian government. So at the moment, it is at the university level that the New Colombo Plan scholarships are available. But at JCU, we work a lot with schools, so we have a strong engagement program with language teachers across North Queensland and Far North Queensland. And this year, in 2017, we have received some scholarships as well from the Department of Education and Training International. So we will be taking 6 high school students, as well as 2 French language teachers and 10 JCU students to Vanuatu.
Learning French at JCU has helped me to see that there is a whole new world close to home with the French islands, and that excites me because it's like our neighbours speak French and I didn't even know that, and now I've got the ability to, in a little part, converse with them. So I recently received a New Colombo Plan scholarship to go to Vanuatu and New Caledonia to learn French in a native speaking country. I'm really excited for that, and I suppose just to meet people and learn the culture, and I suppose seeing it on paper is one thing, but getting to see it before your very eyes and meeting these people you've been writing about is a completely different thing. I think having grown up in New Zealand, but when it came to French Pacific, that was a whole nother world. And just getting to learn about these countries that I suppose were in the peripheral of my mind, like I kind of knew they existed but didn't know their culture or that they spoke French, and I think it was exciting because these are our closest neighbours.
During my French classes at JCU, our lecturer encouraged us to look to our eastern neighbours, our small neighbours that you never hear about in the news at all unless there's a big event that's happening, or for instance like a cyclone that's destroyed a village or something. So she really helped us change our image and change our global way of thinking in terms of the French language. How do I say it? It's just enriched my experience of the world in general. Honestly, it's a really good thing to go overseas and do something like that. It's shown me how the way different governments work and the way different health systems work, and yeah, excellent. I think it's really important to teach our young people so that we can break a cycle of prejudice.
I aspire to first build a coalition of French language teachers so that they can help transform what's happening in the school system in terms of making the Pacific Islands more visible and more accessible to young people. And then from there, trying to really transform the imagery of the Pacific so that we can understand them better, and therefore if you know about something, then you can care about it. All right, so thank you. So that video was done in 2017, and that was trying to go to the next slide. Sorry, that was the last year where I completed my my PhD. I was in the process of finishing it. So between 2014 and 2018, I studied for my PhD in education, and it was an action research project. And so this is when I worked hand in hand with French language teachers, and the aim of the project was to transform the curriculum through a participatory model to assist teachers to teach French to Australian students, ensuring the linguistic features set by the Australian curriculum were met, while at the same time developing the students' Pacific-mindedness, including their knowledge of Australia's east side neighbours. So in challenging the hegemonic positioning of French in the French language classroom, it was evident that a sustained and strong collaboration culture was needed. Some of the questions that I was exploring at the time, and that was many years ago now, but you will see that the partnerships with some of these teachers is still there, and So I had 4 questions at the time that I was exploring. I wanted to find out what were the current understandings of Australia's East Side neighbour among high school students in North Queensland. So most of the study took place at one school in Townsville. Question 2 was trying to find out what our teachers' view of an adjusted teaching practice using Australia's East Side neighbour as a context for French language instructions, and trying to move away from that Eurocentric focus. And how can explicit teaching about Australia's East Side neighbours in a French language context contribute to knowledge about Australia's East Side neighbour and greater international mindedness? And question 4, how can French language teachers transform the current teaching practices to allow a focus on developing students' knowledge about Australia's East Side neighbour and international mindedness? So that's what we were trying to do for 4 years. So I guess it was an action research. I was on the same sort of journey as the colleagues that I was working with in school, except that I was trying to do that transformation with my curriculum here at JCU, and some colleagues were trying to test the curriculum into their school as well. And I guess teaching for Pacific-mindedness, emphasizing connections that reflect our geographical and cultural position, isn't always easy. This transformation really aligns with the Meziro's concept of a perspective transformation and a shift towards critical engagement and context-appropriate pedagogy. And despite some of the challenges that the teachers have had, there were some practices that were transformed. So really, we were trying to transform the imagery of the Pacific by using the French classroom as a vehicle to zoom into this part of the world, which were very much invisible in the Australian curriculum, or at the discretion of the teachers themselves. So the French language classroom seemed to be an ideal place to allow the students to navigate this space. So we created a unit of work just for one term, and the teachers were able to implement that. And pretty much the findings were that, we had this dilemma at the start, which was led with cultural hegemony and so forth, and even curriculum documentations, where it was often, there is a picture of the Eiffel Tower up there, but it's to demonstrate that it wasn't necessarily Paris-centric, but it was very much Eurocentric, even in the resources available to colleagues. That is not to say that, I acknowledge that some people have been doing a few things with the Pacific Islands, but it wasn't necessarily the norm, and if it was, it wasn't a full-on focus on the Pacific. So there was this dilemma. Plus, a lot of our students are coming to us with the desire to learn about France. They want to go to Paris. They have chosen to study French because a lot of them have this romanticized idea of what the French language is, and so as teachers, we naturally fall into that as well. As I said myself, first I was also teaching a very Eurocentric curriculum, and the key moment for me was the move to James Cook University, which at the time in 2014, the focus on the tropics that we had as a university was very strong, and that really allowed me to transform my practice and move away from the Eiffel Tower and turn towards what I knew best at the end of the day, which was the Pacific. So that created some anxiety. Of course, some students were also disappointed at times that we were not covering things about French literature, and that instead we're looking and trying to find text that would focus on the Pacific, and that required some adjustments. Eventually, some accepted it. So you can recognize this. This is the curve of the cultural shock model. So similar sorts of models, and there's ups and downs, and the shift is gradual. And it really requires a shift in meaning and perspective. So epochal transformations, ups and down, and eventually transformation to the east side neighbors is what has happened for some people. Certainly myself, since that was an action research first and foremost. So I have here some. I can see that there are some teachers here in the room that I've been working with for many years now. So I will certainly invite them to speak at some point. But I have worked with a range of French language teachers, and it's been a privilege to work with all of them. And some of them, I've told them that this presentation was on today, and that they were all invited. And some have shared with me part of, I guess, a reflection on their partnership. So I'm sharing this with you today. And this is what this teacher said. So my partnership with Florence and JCU was transformative, helping to meaningfully integrate an Indigenous perspective into my French classes and curriculum. At a school with a 27% Indigenous population of 1,900 students, it is essential to provide a culturally sensitive and inclusive approach. Florence's insights and resources enriched our lessons, adding depth to topics like language, culture, and history, with particular emphasis on Indigenous perspectives in French-speaking regions. One of the standout moments was the increased student engagement and enthusiasm. We organized a picnic featuring tropical fruits and dishes from Pacific Islands combined with French Pacific music and games. This hands-on experience allowed students to connect with both the French language and the broader cultural context of the Pacific, drawing parallels between Indigenous cultures in Australia and those in New Caledonia, Vanuatu, and Tahiti. The students especially enjoy learning through this interaction approach, which helped foster a more profound appreciation of French and Pacific cultures and traditions. Additionally, the collaboration enabled us to explore the impacts of colonization on Indigenous population, fostering critical discussions and reflection. Students develop a stronger awareness of the complexity of language, identity, and heritage, recognizing the shared history of colonization and its cultural consequences. This connection empowers students to view French not just as a language, but as a gateway to understanding diverse perspectives and history with real-world relevance to their own experiences. Florence's input was invaluable in creating a curriculum that acknowledges and respects Indigenous cultures, helping our students appreciate French through a lens that resonates with their own cultural identities and history. One of the comments that I remember at the time, so this was sent to me just last week when I asked, what was happening now, so many years later. But I remember at the time when the research was being conducted for the PhD, the teacher said something along the lines of, yes, we're happy to be part of the project and we're happy to transform our curriculum, but we don't know if we don't know what to if we don't know what to Google in terms of finding key topics to explore with the classes, then we're kind of lost. So that's this work has been trying to provide some of my colleagues with some of the keywords so that they could then find out more about it. This was another text that I've received last week. So working with Florence and JCU was instrumental in developing an outstanding language and cultural unit for grade 7 focused on French in the Pacific. And the collaboration allowed me to design a curriculum that engaged in learning not only the French language, but also the rich cultural heritage present across the Pacific through interactive presentations and discussions. And students gained a broader awareness of cultural diversity, and many were able to relate personally to certain cultural elements we explored. And this inclusive approach encouraged them to connect with and appreciate the varied cultural landscapes within the Pacific region, fostering a deeper understanding of both the language and its surrounding cultural context. So some schools then, many years later have on their own created their own unit, which was fantastic. I might give a couple of minutes maybe to some of the teachers who are in the room if there's anything they want to add onto that. I do have a couple more testimony just before I play the video. I don't know if
We haven't given other participants audio, but if someone pops into chat that they would like it, I can certainly allow the audio if anybody would like to speak. But I can certainly
maybe at the end.
I'll put my camera on. Yeah, we can maybe do that at the end. But I can certainly confirm everything that Florence is saying, because we did a similar thing in my school, which was Brisbane School of Distance Ed, where as a result of hearing about Florence's project, our French teachers definitely tried to move away from the Francophile type way of teaching French, and started to try incorporating a much broader range of French-speaking countries, culture, and language. And they, much like Florence was just saying, excellent, Kelsey, I saw that. I'll be able to give you the mic in a minute. We definitely also found that really helped them to be able to incorporate into their teaching that Australian curriculum requirement to include some Indigenous perspectives, which had previously been quite difficult for them in a French classroom. They found that opened a whole new doorway into how they could bring in that part of the Australian curriculum. So it was, just so transformative in our school for sure. And we still to this day now continue to teach French in a much, we hope, more broader and inclusive way to our students. And in fact, Florence would know that one of our school captains a few years ago went on one of her trips.
I'm about to show a video about him. Yeah.
Oh, you got it? Yeah. So she'll show you the video, and he's just an inspirational student from our school who, I think can do your job for you, Florence, in trying to encourage people.
He is now, actually. So that's good.
So it's changed his whole life. So here he is.
Bonjour. My name is Dominic McCarthy. I'm 17 years old, living in Mackay, and I study French via distance education. November 2018 was my first time travelling overseas. I always had a fascination with the French language, but must admit that before being selected to be part of the JCU Explorers of the Tropics program, I didn't realise that French could connect me with our Pacific neighbours. I learned so much about Pacific cultures and people during this trip. It was not just a linguistic adventure. I became aware of the challenges and opportunities available in the Pacific, and how Australia's future will continue to be linked to this part of the world. Each morning started with formal French classes, followed by cultural activities every afternoon. Along with this, we were immersed in the New Caledonian lifestyle through our homestay family experience. Each day was busy and intense, but I learnt so much. I really enjoyed learning about Kanak culture. I was able to draw some similarities with our own First Nation people here in Australia, which was fascinating. In particular, going into the squats and giving presents to the children definitely challenged my stereotypical view of French culture. I'm grateful that JCU was also able to organise for me to attend a ballet class taught fully in French. It was pretty cool. The teacher was awesome. The highlight for me was being able to meet the Australian Consulate General. You don't get this type of opportunity often. And of course, I loved the food. No need to go all the way to France to enjoy some delicious French pastry. Most importantly, I made some really amazing friends, both university students and high school students from different parts of Queensland. I was not sad to leave New Caledonia. I was actually excited to be back in Australia and share my experiences with others. French is definitely part of my identity, and I know that it is important for me to continue learning it so that I can successfully engage with the Pacific region in the future.
Very good. So that was one of Amanda's students back in 2018, and I'm pleased to say that he is very much switched on all things Pacific these days, and is a wonderful ambassador for Australia in the Pacific. So I'm really grateful to see, I guess, the effects of some of the things that I've had the pleasure of doing over the years. So this is just another one. Again, the teacher wanted to come, but they're teaching. But as part of this program and the research, I mean, all of this is linked to the ripple effect of this research project, and I guess this transformation as an educator. So I was able to secure scholarships from the Department of Education Queensland to take some high school students and some language teachers with me to the Pacific when I was taking my university students. So we were all together, and this teacher came and brought back lots of resources, which is one of the gap that I guess is often identified in any research, is the lack of resources for educators, which prevents them from, transforming their practice. So that teacher was very grateful, and I think he came in 2019 with us, and that was again sent to me last week. So it's really, really good to see that it's still going, and this is the last one that I've got here with you. So it does show that, not everybody, I'm not going to claim that everybody has transformed what they're doing. Certainly it was about planting a seed and trying to encourage and support teachers to try to challenge the hegemonic positioning of French in the French language classroom. And I know that some people have taken it on board, but there is a sustained and strong collaborative culture that is needed. But I would like to, I guess, take this opportunity today to acknowledge the wonderful work that is happening in some schools, and that is all very much thanks to the teachers who have been pretty much on their own for a few years now. Sorry,
I was just going to say, shall I let, do you want to finish up and then I'll let Kelsey have the mic, or do you think now is a good time for her to have a quick chat?
Yeah, how much minutes do I have left? I just
Let's
have a few more
see. Yeah,
slides.
we're getting, okay, we'll finish the slides then. We are we're getting close to the time.
Right.
Yes, go ahead,
Thank
Florence.
you so much. Thank you. And yeah, we've got Shelley and Kelsey both in the room there. So thank you to both of you. So following that, we've also, to help educators to find those keywords that we identified in the research that teachers were lacking of the keywords to find, and then develop their own unit of work. So I've created this Pacific French workbook. It's an OER, Open Educational Resources, and it's free. So teachers can download it. But we all know that there is a language crisis here in Australia, that the number of language students, despite a range of initiative, is still not where we would like it to be. Back in 2020, there was this, 2016, they were trying to raise the number of language students by 2020 to 40%, but that didn't happen. So as I continue to progress through my career, I try to find not just the vehicle of the French language classroom to look into the Pacific, but I was really keen on transforming the imagery of the Pacific. So I started exploring things like music. So, even in the music curriculum, there are opportunities to look and embed the Pacific. So I was working with professors in music, and these are some of my students in Tahiti with the instruments. Then I looked at drama as well, so trying to see what could be done in this space. So I worked with a colleague here who's an academic and then an expert on Shakespeare. And so I draw attention to Pierre Gopp, who's a playwright and has been writing plays for over 30 years. And he has written an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, contextualized within New Caledonia. So did some work with that. And then picture books as well. There's been an explosion of picture books. So for teachers as well, English teachers too, because some of these books are also written in English. And this one, Yana's Treasure, is actually translated in English as well. But it's all about bringing attention to the Pacific, even if you don't have French as a language. So very much the journey continues, because I've seen recently that even with the new Australian curriculum, that the cross curriculum priority still hasn't really changed. It's the same thing, and I 100% agree with the engagement with Asia. And I acknowledge that some other partners have been doing some work building bridges with the Pacific, which is great, but I would really like to see the Pacific as part of the cross-curriculum priority, because if we do that, then it means that we are less likely to leave the Pacific at the discretion of teachers. So in my dream of version 10 of the Australian curriculum, where the cross-curriculum priority would be also focusing on the Pacific, because I think we really need to transform the imagery of the Pacific. We share a past, a present, and the future with our neighbors. There's lots of reasons why. It's not just climate change. But yeah, at the moment, when you ask young people to tell you where are the islands or what islands are located on this big blue patch of water, they know that there are people there, but it's all very blurry, even for us as adults. And I would like them to be able to visualize something like this, so that if they know that there are people there, if they understand the language, they understand their cultures, then they're more likely to care about this common future that we share. So that's the work that I have been doing for 12 years now, and I thank you for listening. And I would like to sincerely thank all the teachers who have worked with me over the years as well. So thank you, Amanda. That's all I have to say. And I'm happy for Shelley or Kelly to speak.
Yeah, I think I've just given the mic to Kelsey. Can you, well, I've attempted to. If it doesn't work, Kelsey, let me know and I'll make you a presenter.
Hopefully,
yes, we can hear you. Brilliant. Yes.
So first of all, thank you so much, Florence, for continuing championing this work, because I participated in Florence's research back in 2014 when I was a beginning teacher, and having learnt my language in Australia through an immersion school, it was always a very Eurocentric approach. And Florence, as she has said, her work was challenging to begin with, given my own experiences with what is French culture. But all the commentaries in the previous testimonials about Florence's work being transformative, and not just from a curriculum perspective, but also as a professional and even personally my understanding around French culture. So massive thank you to Florence for that, because it was quite pivotal in my development there. We worked with Florence at a school in Townsville, and we implemented this around the same time we were implementing Australian curriculum as well. So we were able to almost freely write units, which I think is really important to flag, because that is also coming up for us. Either we're working on it now or we're moving towards it. At the time, we created, based off Florence's work, a travel expo, which the students were super engaged with. Florence came along and brought with her some of her students at the time, and it was this really wonderful community event to create wider engagement. And the last thing I just wanted to say before I jump off in terms of testimonials, it's given the work that we participated in at my previous school, I now work at another school within the Townsville region who also participated in Florence's work. I've been able to see how Florence's work has created almost like a regional cohesiveness in the state school system around our students having that cultural understanding that French is not France, in terms of our feeder schools coming to us at both the regional high schools that I've worked at, who understand the Pacific in the context of French language. I think that links nicely to what Florence said previously about this willing coalition. When we all work together, it does create massive change, and that is driven 100% by your work. So thank you so much, Florence. It is amazing.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. That's very touching. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. Now, does anyone have any questions? I had asked for you to put them in the chat. If anyone does, I can read them out for Florence. We've got some really great comments there about how your work connects with thinking about how to decolonise the curriculum and decenter the focus on the linguistic and cultural metropole. Do you look at New Caledonian varieties of French?
Yes, I mean, whenever we can, we do draw attention to, for example, the fact that New Caledonia is, has French, but also 28 other Kanak languages. And I've delivered a course last week to the Defence Force here in Townsville, and it was called Pacific French, and we did a little bit of Nangone as well, so which is one of the Kanak languages, and just a few words, but it just enables those conversations to take place so that they can see that it's not just French, and that there are varieties as well in different languages that then turns into some sort of Creoles as well. So yeah.
And we've got a question from Eleanor about the ethics process for working in schools. So when you go into a school, are you just going in as, I guess, a teacher, or are you going in as a researcher, in which case, you have to be applying for, ethics clearance?
Yeah, I mean, at the time when when I was doing the PhD, so 2014, 2018, that was all under the researchers' hat. So yes, we had to apply for ethics, and we did the ethics here at JCU, and then with Education Queensland as well, their research team at the time. And apart from that, I mean, one of the the things that I'm really good at is teaching and engaging. And certainly I do need to publish a lot more. And so when I do go to schools, I don't go to collect data or to, I go to generally teach and support the colleagues and the teachers. So, but yeah, if I have to go back to get more data, then I will have to go through the ethics process, which starts with the JCU internal ethics process, and then permissions from, in this case, Department of Education, Queensland, the research team, and then, of course, permissions from the school's principals as well. So, yeah. So how long did it take? That was 2014. So
I can probably answer that. I mean,
6 months maybe.
Yeah, and generally we say to give yourself 12 weeks for there to be, remembering that through the Department of Education, ours is not an ethics approval. The approval that you get when you put in an application for research with the department is much more focused on us making sure that the well-being of the students and the teachers and anyone in the school community that is going to be involved in the research are going to be looked after. So ours is on top of a HREC approval and is slightly different. We have curriculum areas, look at the applications to see the value that that research is going to bring to education in Queensland. Does that answer your question, Eleanor? Excellent. And feel free to reach out to Research Services anytime if you want more detailed information about timelines and research applications. All right, well, I think we have got 2 minutes for me to jump into the next session. Some of you may also be joining the next session. So thanks again, Florence, so much. It's a pleasure. Every time I listen to you, you know that whenever you're at a conference, I come and find your presentation because I just absolutely adore listening to you. So we are really thankful for the work you are doing and for coming and sharing it with us today. And thanks everybody for joining us. And we hope that you will join us again in the future for more webinars and research forums, because our goal in Research Services is to make sure that the wonderful research that people like Florence and other researchers are doing is actually getting out to the place where it is needed the most, which is in schools.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.